In the face of unrelenting economic warfare, the United States can no longer continue with a policy of unilateral economic surrender.
Donald Trump is about to do something in economics that's never been done in American history.
His goal is to actually punish anyone outside the country that's producing goods that America should be producing for itself. He's going to raise revenue for the government. He's going to protect American jobs. And you're going to see a lot of people say, look, America's open for business. Why would you not want to come here and build?
His game is, I'm making America first. I know how to do it. I've got the backbone to do it. No one else did it, and I'm going to get it done.
Trust in President Trump. He knows what he's doing. This is a proven economic formula.
We are finally putting America first.
Mortgage rates come down, inflation has come down, egg prices have come down. These are things you cannot ignore. You've seen trillions of dollars in investment. You've seen companies saying that they're going to expand operations here and nearly 250,000 new jobs.
Oil prices went down almost 15% in 2 days. Interest rates hit their low for the year.
We're celebrating the White House, a decline in the price level, a reduction in inflation.
Some incredible new numbers. This month, consumer prices, they actually dropped. This never once happened under Joe Biden.
Bringing inflation to 2.4% from the same time last year.
The Dow right now shooting up over 2,000 points. Look at that.
Energy costs now are down. Groceries are down. Gasoline is way under $3, and people are beginning to be able to buy things and live again.
This is the most aggressive effort at pro-American growth in American history.
Today officially marks 100 days of promises made and promises kept by President Trump. This has truly been the most historic start to a presidency in American history. The American people trust in President Trump. As President Trump has said before, the best is yet to come.
We're going to have an Air Force base that's not going to be closing. We're going to keep it open for the people of Michigan and for our country. And I look forward to that. Some of you are going and some of you aren't. Any questions? Great. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly. And he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
What was your president? How do you request a update on
No, not an update. No, not an update.
Mr. President, Jordan Conrad's doing the Gateway Pundit. I wanted to get your response on the leftist media. They're trying to hide the mugshots that are featured on the front lawn of rapists, murderers, pedophiles. What do you think of that? Aren't they proving to be the enemy of the people?
Well, I guess they are. I guess they are, right? Thank you. Who are you with?
I like your hat, by the way.
Who are you with?
The Gateway Pundit, sir.
Mr. President, what is your message to Republicans on the Hill who seem not to be on board with your political agenda? What do you say to them?
I think they're going to be all aboard. I think the Republicans are really with us. We have the big, beautiful deal. It's moving along, and I think we're going to have it taken care of. I think they'll all be there.
Mr. President, what's in store, sir?
Will you end the IRS? Tell us about your decision on the auto tariff, sir.
We just wanted to help them during this little transition, short term. And during this little, if they can't get parts, you know, it has to do with a very small percentage. If they can't get parts, we didn't want to penalize them. And they have a 1 year period, and then they have an extra year. But it's for a very, very small part of the car. Basically, they're paying 25%.
Mr. President, on the Panama Canal.
Will you end the IRS? With the Internal Revenue Service.
And what's your message for all retailers who could do possibly the same thing?
Yeah, nothing that really, he's a good guy. I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years. And he's done a fantastic job. So I appreciated what he did.
Sir, what's your How are you? There you go. How's your day? You're going to give this speech in Michigan. You're going to list the accomplishments of the administration. Yeah. If there was one big thing that you really wanted to have happen in the first 100 days, what would it be?
Well, I think we've done everything or it's in the process of being done. For instance, the border is in great shape. 99.9% came out again today. 99.9. That I would say that was my number one thing. The economy would be certainly right up there, and I think it's doing great. We were losing billions and billions of dollars a day with trade, And now I have that down to a very low level, and soon we're going to be making a lot of money. We're going to be reducing people's taxes, and we're going to get the big, look, a very important element that we're working on now, maybe more important than anything with the border in good shape, is the fact, is the fact that we want to get, and very importantly, the big, beautiful New Deal. If we get that done, that's the biggest thing, what's happening in Congress right now. And I think we're going to get it done. We have great Republican support. If the Democrats blocked it, you'd have a 60% tax increase. I don't think that's going to happen. We have great support from Republicans. So the big, beautiful deal, that's what we want, the bill. I think the next period of time, I think my biggest focus will be on Congress with the deal that we're working on. That'll be the biggest bill in the history of our country in terms of tax cuts and regulation cuts and other things.
The Canadian election.
As Pope? I'd like to be Pope. That would be my #1 choice. No, I don't know. I have no preference. I must say we have a cardinal that happens to be out of a place called New York who's very good. So we'll see what happens. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. President, you are doing so much for Africa. You are the first president that in the first 100 days focused on Africa for the first time in the history of this country. Are you planning maybe in the future visit the continent?
Sure, I would do that. I would do that, absolutely.
Mr. President, what's the biggest challenge?
Do you want Angola, Mr. President?
Mr. President,
yeah, go ahead.
will you speak to the Prime Minister of Australia at all? Mr. Trump, the Australian Prime Minister is having an election this weekend.
Yeah.
Will you speak to him about trade?
They are calling, and I will be talking to him, yes.
Did you happen to do something with the tariffs and automobiles? Were you worried about the automobiles?
No, not at all. We're just giving them a little chance because in some cases they can't get the parts fast enough. So this is just a little transition. It's 15% for 1 year and just 10% for another. It's a little bit. And it has to do, that's only the percentage of parts on the car. So it's a little bit of help for people that will be doing a great job. And these are all people, for the most part, that are building plants and will be working here. So it's a little transition. Go ahead, what? India's coming along great. I think we'll have a deal with India. The Prime Minister, as you know, was here 3 weeks ago, and they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, what's the biggest challenge of next 100 days? Mr. President, how do you rate the 100?
Good morning, everybody. Happy first 100 days. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that the bipartisan Take It Down Act passed the House last night. This important legislation was championed and guided through Congress by our wonderful First Lady, Melania Trump, including through her direct advocacy on behalf of survivors during her passage, the passage efforts. The Take It Down Act criminalizes the publication of non-consensual intimate imagery and requires social media and similar websites to remove such content within 48 hours of notice from a victim. The First Lady thanks all those who voted in favor of this important legislation, and the President looks forward to signing it when it arrives on his desk. Today officially marks 100 days of promises made and promises kept by President Trump. This has truly been the most historic start to a presidency in American history. After building the greatest economy in the world in his first term as president, President Trump is in the process of doing that all over again. The American people trust in President Trump. Since his first day in office, President Trump has focused on defeating the Biden inflation crisis, bringing down the cost of living, and making the United States the best place in the world to do business, invest, create jobs, and innovate. And President Trump's efforts are working. 345,000 jobs have already been added since the start of President Trump's term. Last month's jobs report saw nearly 100,000 more jobs than economists predicted, and it was the fourth highest month for private payroll growth in the past 2 years. 9,000 manufacturing jobs have been added to the economy already. This is a sharp contrast to the 6,000 manufacturing jobs that were lost each month in the final 2 years of the Biden administration. The U.S. employment rate remains at historic lows. And thanks to President Trump, Americans are seeing price relief for the first time in years. The last inflation report showed the first consumer price decline since the COVID pandemic, a decrease in energy prices, and real average hourly wage growth. President Trump is delivering on his promises to lower costs for American families and businesses. Prices across the board for everyday goods have seen declines since this president was inaugurated. From airfare to used motor vehicles to prescription drugs, prices are dropping. In fact, last month's drop in the price of prescription drugs was the largest ever recorded. And after Joe Biden botched the response to the bird flu, President Trump and Secretary Rollins' aggressive plan have brought down wholesale egg prices more than 50% from Inauguration Day. President Trump ended Joe Biden's reckless war on American energy and fossil fuels and has restored American energy dominance. And Secretary Wright, Secretary Doug Burgum are working hard on that effort every single day. Oil and gas prices are now way down because of this bold approach. Gasoline prices down 7%. Energy prices are also down as well. The Department of Interior just announced a new offshore drilling policy that will boost oil production in the Gulf of America by 100,000 barrels per day. On the deregulation front, President Trump is committed to cutting senseless red tape, especially for America's small business owners who are the backbone of our economy. We know cutting regulation leads to lower costs and higher growth. The mass deregulation effort by this administration will help usher in the golden age of America, which is underway. Immediately upon taking office, President Trump blocked all of the unfinalized Biden-era rules, saving Americans more than $100 billion, or $2,100 per family of 4 over the next decade. And the president also launched a bold multi-agency effort to roll back existing federal regulations that drive up the cost of living on hardworking families. This effort is projected to yield significant cost savings in the coming months, including the EPA's rollback of tailpipe emission rules for light-duty and medium-duty vehicles and the Department of Transportation's latest corporate average fuel economy standards. These two efforts alone yield $755 billion in total savings, or more than $8,800 per family of 4 over the next decade. In total, the combined savings from all of these actions equal just over $935 billion, or nearly $11,000 in real savings per family of 4 per the coming decade. The press is not talking nearly enough about the positive impact of President Trump's deregulation campaign. And investments from the biggest companies and countries in the world are pouring in under this president. So far, total investment commitments under the Trump administration have reached more than $5 trillion, including $500 billion from Apple in U.S.-based manufacturing and training, $500 billion from NVIDIA and AI infrastructure, $100 billion from TSMC and U.S.-based chips manufacturing, and the $500 billion private investment by OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank in AI infrastructure as well. All of these investment commitments are estimated to generate at least 451,000 new high-paying jobs for American workers and families. At this point, President Trump has secured more investments in the United States of America in 100 days than Joe Biden did in 4 years. President Trump is America's businessman in chief, and that's why these trillions of dollars in investments are flooding to our country. The business community is bullish on America because President Trump is back in charge. Tomorrow, the president will host CEOs and leaders from several companies that have made these investments to tout their historic commitments to our country and encourage others to follow suit. Under President Trump, there has never been a better time to invest in America. And the president finally said enough is enough and refused to allow America and our workers to be ripped off any longer on trade. President Trump implemented powerful tariffs to end the era of economic surrender and to rebalance America's trading agreements. More than 100 countries have already come to the table looking to offer more favorable terms for America and our people. There has never been a president who has created his own leverage like this president, and we are just getting started. Republicans in Congress are getting very close to passing President Trump's one big, beautiful bill, which will include the largest tax cuts in American history, strong border security measures, major military advancements, dramatic deregulation, and common sense spending reforms. As President Trump has said before, the best is yet to come. For more on President Trump's economic successes so far and the plans ahead, I want to pass it off to our incredible Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, who is here today, and we will open it up to questions. In our new media seat, we have Brendan Peterson, the financial services reporter for Punchbowl News. Punchbowl News covers power, people, and politics based in Washington, D.C., laser focused on Capitol Hill, the politics of legislating, founded in 2021, and it is the first newsletter that Capitol Hill and the White House reads every morning in the middle of the day and throughout the evening. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll start with you today.
Thanks so much for being here. I have a question for Secretary Bessent. On tariffs, the president said over the weekend that we are hoping that maybe tariff revenues could replace income tax. But we also keep hearing about the deals that the administration is pursuing. So my question is, what is the White House's ultimate objective here? Do you want to have long-term tariff revenue or deals that might reduce those tariffs?
I think it's a combination of both. So we're going to take in long-term tariff revenue. We put a process in place. We have 18 important trading relationships. We will be speaking to all of those partners, or at least 17 of them, over the next few weeks. Many of them have already come to Washington. What President Trump is referring to is the ability for tariff revenue to give income tax relief. And I think there's a very good chance that we will see this in the upcoming tax bill. The president campaigned on no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and the restoring interest deductibility for autos, for American-made autos. So tariff income could be used for tax relief on all of those immediately.
So you think that there is a role for significant tariff revenue in U.S. fiscal policy?
I think that it is something that got put away a long time ago, and I think that tariffs will bring back American manufacturing and generate substantial revenues.
On manufacturing, we've seen some pretty grisly surveys this month from the Philly Fed, which saw the biggest drop since May of 2020, and the Dallas Fed, similar plunging outlook, poor shipping orders. What are American manufacturers not understanding about your push for onshoring in the U.S.?
Well, I think I was in the investment business 35 years, and I learned to ignore the survey data and look at the actual data, and the actual data has been quite good. The job data is good. Americans keep spending, and as Caroline said, we have these incredible commitments to bring manufacturing back on shore with record investment by domestic corporations and foreigners who want to come into the U.S.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The Chinese continue to say that the U.S. and China are not engaged in any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. You recently said you've talked to your counterpart, but more about, quote, traditional things like financial stability. So can you clarify, is the administration talking to Beijing specifically about tariffs or not?
Well, we're not going to talk about who's talking to whom, but I think that over time we will see that the Chinese tariffs are unsustainable for China. I've seen some very large numbers over the past few days that show if these numbers stay on, Chinese could lose 10 million jobs very quickly, and even if there is a drop in the tariffs, that they could lose 5 million jobs. So remember that we are the deficit country. They sell almost 5 times more goods to us than we sell to them. So the onus will be on them to take off these tariffs. They're unsustainable for them.
And they are saying you guys are not talking about it. So is that true?
Look, they have a different form of government. They're playing to a different audience. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, again, of who's talking to whom. But as I said, I believe for the Chinese, these tariffs are unsustainable.
And very quickly, 2 days ago, you said you didn't know if President Trump had spoken to Xi Jinping. Do you know now?
Again, I would say Caroline and I have a lot of jobs around the White House. Running the switchboard isn't one of them.
Bloomberg, go ahead. Secretary Bessent, thank you so much for being here this morning. You've talked about the importance of giving investors certainty when it comes to the market, yet the Trump administration is continuing to negotiate several complex trade deals in a very sort of compressed time frame. When do you expect you'll be able to give the market some certainty around those deals? Do you have a deadline? Is it the 90-day pause? What are we looking at here?
Good question. And I think one thing that has been a little disconcerting for the markets is, President Trump creates what I would call strategic uncertainty in the negotiations. So he is more concerned about getting the best possible trade deals for the American people. We had 4 years of bad deals for decades of unfair trading, and we are going to unwind those and make them fair. What we are doing is we've created a process. I think the aperture of uncertainty will be narrowing, and as we start moving forward announcing deals, then there will be certainty. But certainty is not necessarily a good thing in negotiating.
Mr. Secretary, last night there were reports on the administration sort of walking back a little bit on the auto tariffs. Can you sort of just elaborate on that decision there and what we can expect going forward, and why sort of the shift in those auto tariffs?
Well, President Trump has had meetings with both domestic and foreign auto producers, and he's committed to bringing back auto production to the U.S. So we want to give the automakers a path to do that quickly, efficiently, and create as many jobs as possible.
Jasmine. Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you, Secretary. Back on China, does the administration anticipate supply chain shocks or supply shocks coming now that cargo shipments from China are significantly down? And if so, are there plans in the process of how to address that?
I wouldn't think that we would have supply chain shocks, and I think retailers have managed their inventory in front of this. I speak to dozens of companies, sometimes daily, but definitely weekly, and they know that President Trump is committed to fair trade and have planned accordingly.
And then second question, can you outline the timeline for when you think some of these deals, particularly with your Asian countries like India, Japan, South Korea, you may have an announcement?
I'm glad you brought up our Asian trading partners and allies. They have been the most forthcoming in terms of doing the deals. As I mentioned, Vice President Vance was in India last week. I think that he and Modi made some very good progress, so I could see some announcements on India. I could see the contours of a deal with the Republic of Korea coming together, and then we've had substantial talks with the Japanese.
Andrea.
Secretary Bessent, just continuing on the path of the sort of progress. You said yesterday, I think, that it was could happen as early as this week or possibly next week. Can you give us a bit of a timetable? And then I wanted to ask about South Korea specifically. They've said that they probably won't be able to make a comprehensive deal until early July because of their elections. Japan also has elections. And to what extent are domestic factors complicating your efforts? Canada just had an election. Are you seeing that you might have to think about delaying the 90 days?
Well, I would actually take the opposite tack, that I think from our talks that these governments actually want to have the framework of a trade deal done before they go into elections to show that they have successfully negotiated with the United States. So we are finding that they are actually much more keen to come to the table, get this done, and then go home and campaign on it.
Sean.
I'm sorry, did you have a comment on whether something could happen this week or next week? For a deal. So, you said yesterday.
Again, I think that we are very close on India. And in India, just a little inside baseball, India, in a funny way, is easier to negotiate with than many other countries because they have very high tariffs and lots of tariffs. So it's much easier to confront the direct tariffs when, as we go through these unfair trade deals that have been put in over decades, that the non-tariff trade barriers can be much more insidious and also harder to detect. So a country like India, which has the posted and ready tariffs, it's much easier to negotiate with them. So I think the India negotiations are moving well.
Sean, go
Hi,
ahead.
Mr. Secretary. So it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this, since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon. And Secretary, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I would also add that the bringing down the terrible Biden inflation has been a priority for the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and President Trump has done a great job of leading that. Since January 20th, interest rates, mortgage rates are down, gasoline and energy prices are down. We're expecting the further decreases, and as Caroline said, the big tax on consumers that goes unnoticed is deregulation or regulation, and we are deregulating and bringing that down. So, from a household income point of view, we would expect real purchasing increases. We've seen them over the first 100 days, and we would expect that to accelerate. We are doing peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and deregulating. And the deregulation is a longer lead time, but I think by the third and fourth quarters, that's really going to kick in.
Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. A question for you and Secretary Bessent. We talk a lot about volatility and uncertainty in the marketplace, and the president has stated all along that he's more concerned about mainstream America, the American worker. You just talked about deregulation and this entire fair trade and reciprocals. What is your message to the American people in terms of letting them get through this disturbance and the outcome being greater and a greater good for the American worker, the American people, the American families?
I would say trust in President Trump. There's a reason he was reelected to this office. It's because of the historic success of his economic formula in the first term, and as I laid out at the beginning of the briefing and the Secretary has talked about and the President talks about every day, there's a proven formula that works. Massive deregulation, energy independence, and tax cuts, which are coming. And the Secretary is working very hard on that with our counterparts on Capitol Hill. If you want to talk about that, that's a huge deal to put more money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. As for the fair trade deals the president is trying to negotiate, he's not just righting the wrong of the mess that he inherited from the past 4 years of the Biden administration. This is a mess that has been created for the past 4 decades that has sold out the middle class, that has moved jobs overseas. You think about our heartland, middle America, what towns used to look like, what they look like today. President Trump wants to restore the golden age, and it's a process to do that. And that process is underway, but he's put together a fantastic trade team. Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, Jamieson Greer, all working incredibly hard on this effort 24/7. But tax cuts are coming, and that's key. And Mr. Secretary, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yep. So it's really a three-legged stool in the economic policy. It's trade, it's tax, and it's deregulation. So we are in the midst of addressing, as Caroline said, these long-term trade imbalances. The tax bill is going much better than I would have thought when I took office on January 28th, and that's through President Trump's leadership. That Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune are united. Speaker Johnson, we had a very good meeting yesterday with somebody called the Big Six, NEC Director Kevin Hassett, myself, Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune, Committee Chairman Jason Smith, and Senator Crapo. And the tax bill is moving forward. It is going to give permanence to the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Act, which will, back to the question on certainty, it will give American business certainty, it will give American people certainty, and then President Trump is also adding the things for working Americans that is talked about earlier, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, making auto payments deductible. So that will substantially address the affordability crisis. And the other thing that I would note, and back to data, is that the Vanguard, one of the largest money management firms in America, said that over the past 100 days, 97% of Americans haven't done a trade. And in fact, individual investors have held tight while institutional investors have panicked. So individual investors trust, individual investors trust President Trump.
Megan, in the back.
Can you detail for us exactly what we should expect as far as relief on the auto tariffs front? And then further, Mr. Secretary, should we expect other industries to also get relief the way we've now seen for auto and tech as well?
I'm not going to go into the details of the auto tariff relief, but I can tell you that it will go substantially toward reshoring American auto manufacturing. And again, the goal here is to bring back the high quality industrial jobs to the U.S. President Trump is interested in the jobs of the future, not the jobs of the past. We don't need to necessarily have a booming textile industry like where I grew up again, but we do want to have precision manufacturing and bring that back. And another important, very important function of this that does not get talked about enough is national security. President Trump, his overriding concern and belief is that economic security is national security is economic security. And we saw during COVID that our supply chains got cut off. And we need to bring back a lot of those supply chains, whether it's in semiconductors, medicines, the steel, and we have to onshore those. So it's a combination of making trade free and fair and remedying this gaping national security hole that he was left with.
I would just add, Megan, the president will sign the executive order on auto tariffs later today, and we will release it as we always do. Go ahead.
Secretary, can you update on the negotiation with the European Union, and is it hard to negotiate with the European Union?
Pardon?
Do you have any updates on the negotiation with the European Union?
I'm more involved in the Asian negotiations. My observation would be, goes all the way back to Henry Kissinger's statement, when I call Europe, who do I call? So we're negotiating with a lot of different interests. Some of the European countries have put on an unfair digital service tax on our big internet provider. France and Italy, other countries, Germany and Poland, don't have that. So we want to see that unfair tax of one of America's great industries removed. So it's going to be a give and take. So they have some internal matters to decide before they can engage in an external negotiation.
Edward.
Thanks, Caroline. Mr. Secretary, so contacts I have in the business community say that they're basically frozen for long-term investment because of the uncertainty around tariffs. How long do you think President Trump has to make a deal before there's damage to the economy?
Look, I think that what we're seeing is that business leaders, they've gone into a pause, and I think we're going to give them great certainty on this tax bill. And I think over the next couple of weeks, as I said, we have 18 important trading relationships. We'll put China to the side. 17 are in motion. And then, as I said yesterday, I think there's a very good chance we're going to get this tax bill done. And the tax bill is going to be very powerful for domestic U.S. investment. So what we are going to do, one of the most powerful parts of President Trump's 2017 tax bill was full expensing of equipment. We are going to make that, as President Trump said in his speech to Congress, that will be retroactive to January 20th. The other thing that we are looking to add is full expensing for factories. So bring your factory back. You can fully expense the equipment and the building. We will couple that with deregulation, cheap energy, and regulatory certainty, and that will continue to make the U.S. the greatest destination for domestic and foreign investment.
And the president, well, if I can follow, just the president said that world leaders would like to meet with him in Rome, in Vatican City, about trade. Other than President Zelensky, who did the president meet with, and about trade, and when could we get some of those deals?
The president met with President Zelensky, as you know, which we talked about, and the president continues to be engaged with his fellow fellow leaders around the world in the European Union. You've seen many of them visit the White House. I want to harp on, in closing, the point the Secretary just made. On the campaign trail, the president promised the American public that he was going to make America the best country in the world to do business again. The lowest taxes, lowest regulation, lowest energy costs of anywhere in the world. And if you do business in the United States, you won't pay a tariff, you won't pay a price. That's not just good for companies around the world, but it's good for the American worker. That's what this team is focused so hard on every day. We have work to do. The golden age of America is underway. But as I pointed out in the beginning, there's a lot of reason for the American consumer, the American CEO, the American small business owner to be confident and optimistic about this president and where we're headed. So you will hear more from the president himself later this evening. He is traveling to Michigan, as you all know. He'll make a stop at the Air Force Base with Governor Whitmer, and then we will head to a rally tonight where you'll hear more from him directly. So we'll see you in Michigan. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This is our second official influencer briefing here at the White House in the beautiful South Court Auditorium. And as you can tell, in the White House, we are fully embracing new media. Trust in the mass media has fallen to record lows. Tens of millions of Americans are turning elsewhere to get their news and their information. That's why we've welcomed in openly independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, content creators, and we will continue to do so. President Trump and our White House also believe strongly in the First Amendment, which is why our team has restored the press passes of hundreds of journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the Biden administration. So thank you all so much for coming today, for your interest in covering the historic achievements of President Trump's first 100 days. And today officially marks 100 days of promises made and kept by President Trump. Our primary focus is how President Trump is in the process of rebuilding the world's greatest economy, just like he did in his first term. President Trump has created 345,000 jobs since taking office in January. Last month's job report, we saw 100,000 more jobs than economists predicted. It was the fourth highest month for private payroll growth in the past 2 years. 9,000 manufacturing jobs have been created and added to the economy already since January, and that's in comparison to the 6,000 manufacturing jobs that were lost per month in the final 2 years of the Biden administration. So each month we were losing 6,000 manufacturing jobs under President Trump. In just 100 days, we've added 9,000. The U.S. unemployment rate remains at historic lows. The labor force participation rate for those without a high school diploma is up. Good news for working class American families. And the veteran unemployment rate is down as well to 3.8% in March. When we came into office, it was 4.2%. Remote work among federal employees has fallen over 16 percentage points from March last year to March this year, showcasing the success of President Trump's initiative to bring federal workers back to the office. We know middle-class Americans, hardworking people, they have to show up to the office every day. We expect bureaucrats and government workers to do the same, especially when they are living off of the taxpayer's dime. If you want to work on behalf of the American taxpayer, you should show up to work in person. Thanks to President Trump, Americans are seeing the first price relief in years. The last inflation report showed the first consumer price decline in years, a decrease in energy prices, and real average hourly wage growth. President Trump is delivering on his promises to lower costs for American families and businesses. Prescription drug prices are down. Last month's drop in prescription drugs prices was the largest ever recorded. And thanks to President Trump ending Joe Biden's reckless war on American energy, gasoline prices and energy prices are down as well. The cost of wholesale eggs has decreased more than 50%. The President Trump inherited a complete mess from the Biden administration, who totally botched their response to the bird flu. They were killing chickens. They were killing our chicken supply in this country, which led to an increase in egg prices. And the president and Secretary Rollins did an incredible job attacking that on day one. On the deregulation front, President Trump is launching the largest deregulation campaign in American history. He has blocked all of the unfinalized Biden-era rules, which has saved us more than $180 billion already. He's launched a bold multi-agency effort to roll back existing federal regulations that drive up the cost of living on hardworking families. That has yielded more than $755 billion in total savings as well. And as you all know, investments from companies around the world continue to pour into this country. Every morning we wake up to a new headline with a new company from a different country announcing major investments in our country. What does that mean for people in your communities across the nation? It means jobs. It means Americans going to work. It means Americans providing for their families, for their children, living the American dream. That's what those investments will do. It's truly the golden age of America. And that's why the president is working so hard to leverage good trade deals around the world. He knows America is the best place in the world to do business. He is using our leverage to negotiate good deals with countries around the world, to onshore manufacturing jobs here, to revitalize our middle class and our manufacturing industry, and also to protect our national security. I don't think any American agrees it's good that China currently supplies and produces our chips, our pharmaceuticals, and our critical industries. We want those things built in the United States of America. And President Trump is the first president in modern times to actually do something about that. So with that said, today is 100 days. There have been so many achievements, not just on the economic front, and the president continues to work very hard on tax cuts as well. And on negotiating those trade deals. But look at the success at the southern border, which we talked a lot about yesterday with our border czar, Tom Homan, Secretary Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller here at the White House, all of whom are doing a tremendous job and have created, at the president's direction, the most secure border in American history. We have a mass deportation campaign of illegal aliens underway. We are removing heinous criminals from your communities across the country. Every single day, we are making America safe again. And if you look abroad on the world stage, the president is really using his peace through strength foreign policy approach once again. To the rest of the world knows that America is back. I know Joe Biden used to say that, but we're stealing it from him because it's actually true now. With President Trump in the Oval Office, the world is a safer place and will continue to be. So thanks for coming to the Influencer Briefing. I look forward to taking your questions. And Deborah, why don't you kick us off?
On 100 incredible days. And over the first 100 days, the majority of policies that we've seen from the Trump administration have been either targeted at foreign affairs, such as bringing the American hostages home, or attempting to end the war between Ukraine and Russia, or on long-term goals such as cutting government spending with DOGE. What policies can we expect to see rolled out over the next few months that Americans will directly feel the effects of in order to secure the 2026 midterms for the Republican Party and keep his approval rating historically high?
Yeah, the first answer that comes to mind, Deborah, is definitely tax cuts. The president is working closely with Congress as we speak. He met with leadership from both chambers. The administration met with leadership from both chambers yesterday to talk about how we can quickly pass the largest tax cuts in American history. And the president promised on the campaign trail he wanted no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security for our hardworking seniors, no tax on overtime pay. He intends to keep those promises, and he needs Congress's help to do so. That's why he's working closely with them. But you look at, again, I talked about the leverage the president uses to negotiate good trade deals around the world, but he uses that leverage right here in Washington as well, on Capitol Hill. He has great relationships with leaders on both chambers, and we are confident that we can pass a massive tax bill which will directly lead to more money in people's pockets right away. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so the president has really wanted to end the war in Ukraine for a long time now and has been working on that in the first 100 days. We've seen President Zelensky come here, as well as the president meeting with President Zelensky just in the last couple of days. I'm wondering where those talks stand and if the president is optimistic that that conflict is going to wrap up shortly.
The president is optimistic yet realistic about the incredibly complicated and unfortunate situation happening with Ukraine and Russia. First of all, this is Biden's war. It would have never started if President Trump were in office. There is a reason that Putin did not invade Ukraine when President Trump was in the Oval Office, and it's because, again, President Trump leveraged the power of the United States to warn Putin not to do it. And the president has spoken about that in those direct warnings to the Kremlin that he gave in his first term. And then we had a mentally incompetent president in Joe Biden who didn't even know what day it is, never mind knew how to prevent war. And the entire world took advantage of that and took advantage of America's lackluster leadership abroad. And so we've had this terrible war. The president talks about it all the time. He's briefed on it constantly. There are men dying on the front lines of this. An entire generation is being wiped out. And enough is enough. The president has made it very clear he wants to see this end at the negotiating table, not on the battlefield. He has spoken directly to both sides of this war. He most recently met with President Zelensky at the Vatican when he attended the funeral of Pope Francis. And he remains optimistic that both sides will come together to negotiate peace. There are a lot of complexities on both sides of this war, but so he's realistic about that, but he is optimistic that we are moving in the right direction. And if you just take a step back and look at where we are now, where you have concessions from both sides publicly, where you have ceasefire proposals from both sides. The president's made it clear he wants a permanent ceasefire first, but you actually have the United States talking to Russia. You have the United States talking to the Ukrainians on a daily basis, communicating with both sides. Look at that compared to where we were when we came into office, where neither side was talking. There was just one approach to ending this war. No one was really talking about a peace deal. We were just talking about continuing to send blank checks to continue funding the fighting and the killing. This war has been a meat grinder. Young men are dying. Women and children are dying as a collateral result of the military conflict, and the president wants to see it end as quickly and soon as possible. And I can tell you, watching firsthand, he has exuded a tremendous amount of effort into this war. He's getting frustrated with the amount of effort this has taken, and he's made that clear to both sides. But he remains optimistic that we can get this done. Brendan.
I was wondering if you'd indulge me in a quick round of Trump trolling or Trump truthing.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, good.
Love it.
Rapid fire. Greenland joining America.
Definitely Trump truthing.
Becoming a 51st state.
Trump truthing all the way. And the Canadians would benefit greatly, let me tell you that.
Eliminating the IRS?
I think that is an optimistic goal, and the president, so I would say we're on the side of truthing there for sure. And the president, again, wants to see tax cuts, and he wants to see this massive revenue that we can gain from tariffs as well, which will create the external revenue service. So that's a definitive goal for sure.
And most importantly, Trump 2028.
Trump trolling, although the hats are flying off the shelves. Yes. Link, go ahead.
So one thing I've noticed in the first 100 days is that the White House is crawling with kids. You have a young, beautiful baby boy. There are babies everywhere. There's so many young folks on staff who have kids. But the last 4 years under Joe Biden, parents were really stressed and ravaged. They had to take on 2 or 3 extra jobs. Depression rates were up. Suicide rates were up. You're a very high-profile young mother who seems to juggle and balance it all beautifully. What advice do you have to young parents out there who are starting their careers, having kids, building families, and trying to find that balance so desperately?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. And first, to the heart of your premise, it's true. The president has empowered not just me as a young mother in this role, but there are so many new moms and dads on our senior staff in the West Wing, but also across the entire administration. There are working moms and dads who are owing our country public service for President Trump while raising young families, and the president really empowers us to do that, and I commend him for that. He doesn't get enough credit for it. But as for the president is implementing policies every day to uplift young families and young people. He talked so much about young people and talked directly to young people so much on the campaign trail. It really, I think, inspires him when he is around young people and a young audience. And he wants to restore the American dream for the next generation, not just our generation of young folks, but our children and our grandchildren. What does that look like? Home ownership, the ability to afford a home, to live, to have a good paying job. That's part of this effort to onshore jobs, because you have an entire generation going to these incredibly expensive and liberal higher education universities, coming out saddled with debt and then unable to get a good paying job. The president wants to put an end to that, and so that young people can provide for their families and truly live the American dream. So to young people around the country, the president hears you, he sees you, he loves you, and he wants to uplift you. And all of the policies he's implementing every day are to provide a more prosperous and safe and free America for future generations. You're welcome. Sure.
Nice to meet you,
Hi,
Caroline.
you
Thank
too.
you so much for the time.
Sure.
Tagging off of Link's question about young people, one of the most pressing challenges for Gen Z right now is the lack of home ownership. As of 2025, I believe the median age is 38 years old of first-time home buyers, which is, a hindrance to starting families for a lot of people. How does the Trump administration plan on tackling this in the next 4 years?
It's a major issue, as you mentioned, that's directly impacting young people and young families. And the president is, I think, tackling it head on already. The reason that homes have become so unaffordable is because of the massive inflation crisis caused by the previous administration. Not just the cost of a home, but everything that goes into building a new home went up and through the roof, right? We also saw mortgage rates reach incredible highs under the previous administration. So a few things. The president wants to bring down the cost of living, which he is already doing, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, which will increase our supply of homes across the country. But he also wants to bring down mortgage rates and interest rates to make it easier for young people and all people to borrow money, to take out those loans, to buy your first home. And so we got to increase the supply, bring down costs, and bring down interest rates and mortgage rates. And by the way, those are all things the president successfully did in his first term. When he left office, inflation was a record low 1.4%. Interest rates, mortgage rates also hit record lows in his first term. So this is a proven economic formula that works. It takes time to get there. We are in the process of the golden age. The president and the admin are slashing regulation every day, cutting red tape, cutting costs, and we need, again, Congress to pass those tax cuts to put more money back in people's pockets so they have greater purchasing power as well. You're welcome. Sure.
Teresa Nwuka with Independent Women and WMAL.
Oh, great.
We love working with the administration to really tout policies that work for families and work for small businesses in this country. Next week is Small Business Week, and I know that the SBA will be, championing all the small businesses, the millions in this country, almost half of which are women-owned. But I'd love to find out what the president feels about independent contractors who are not typical W-2 employees, not 9-to-5 workers, but who hang their own shingle. They're 1099 workers. We saw the Biden administration really try to crack down on that small business entrepreneurial spirit, and we're hopeful that the administration would overturn what the Biden administration did and maybe even work with Congress to pass some lasting changes, codify some lasting changes that would protect, your ability to be self-employed, your ability to be a small business owner.
Well, the president is a businessman at heart himself, right? He's a real estate developer, and I think that's a large reason the American people elected him the first time and the second time, because they trust in him. And small businesses are the backbone of our American economy. I come from a small business family myself, and the president knows what small business families need and independent contractors need, entrepreneurs need. You need less government in the way. You need less regulation. You need low energy costs, low taxes, a low cost of living, a low cost of goods. And that's exactly what the president is focused on doing, while simultaneously effectively leveraging tariffs to protect our middle class and our working class and our manufacturing base. You look at our auto industry, think about Michigan. It used to be the heartland of the auto industry of the world. It was the auto capital of the world. And unfortunately, so many of those jobs have gone overseas. And so the president wants to protect good paying jobs here at home and unleash the might of our economy for small business owners. And that includes removing red tape and cutting taxes. And as for independent contractors and what the president would hope to do with Congress, we'll definitely check back in on that and get you an answer, because it's an important question. You're welcome. Sure.
Hi, Will Upton, the National Pulse. You kind of gave us an overview of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia 100 days in. What would the next steps look like, though, if we don't reach an agreement by, say, this summer? And also, can you give us an update on the rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine? And is there any kind of response from the administration to Greenlandic Foreign Minister Vivian Motzfeldt, some of her comments about maybe seeking aid with China?
Sure. To your first question about the critical minerals deal, the president is confident that will be signed. Ukraine needs to sign it. They should sign it. It's not just good for the United States to recoup the billions of tax dollars we've spent and onshore some of those critical minerals, but certainly it's good for the Ukrainian people when this war is over to rebuild their country. It's an economic partnership between the United States and Ukraine. That's what the president envisions, and he wants Ukraine to sign that deal. He's confident that they will. As for what it would look like later down the road, I don't want to get ahead of the president, obviously, but again, I will reiterate, he's increasingly grown frustrated in the amount of time our Secretary of State recently said, there's not much more time or effort the United States has to give to this effort, and so we need both sides to come to the table to negotiate. As for Greenland, I hadn't seen those comments. If true, I'm sure they are. Certainly an interesting strategy to cozy up to communist China. Greenland needs the United States of America. We subsidize their national security and their defense. And the president has rightfully pointed out the great strategic importance that Greenland serves for not just our national security and economic interests, but for our country and for the world as a whole. And we can't allow Chinese or Russian influence to continue to infiltrate places like Greenland or the Panama Canal, I may add. Into the back.
Can you talk about the importance of a stock market all-time high, and, specifically in relation to the midterms? And it seems like a lot of folks, when Trump was elected, they thought that stock market goes up. He really cares about that. He uses it as a measurement of the economy. It's gone down, but it's still up, over the last 12 months or so. So how much of that is playing into some of the economic policy decisions?
I think the president has spoken on this. He said the stock market gets yippee, but he doesn't get yippee. He trusts in his economic agenda and formula, obviously. And, Wall Street made out very well in President Trump's first term. President Trump also wants to look out for Main Street and do what's best for both. So I think the president right now, his main focus, what drives him to make decisions is what's best for the working class Americans, for the American worker, for the small business owner, for American families. And he's trying to correct the wrongs of the last several decades, not just the last 4 years with the economic and inflation nightmare caused by the Biden administration, but of the unfair trade practices that have ripped off our country for a very long time. So look, the stock market goes up, it goes down, but President Trump has a goal, he has a vision, and he's remaining very much committed to that. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. We're heading off to Michigan tonight for a big rally, so I am sure we'll see all of your amazing creative content on social media later. It's going to be a great speech, and maybe you'll get a Trump dance too. So thank you so much for coming today. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Well, I guess they think we're going to save this place. And you know what? They're right. 100% right. We're going to save it and make it better, actually. So at ease, everybody. At ease. Enjoy yourself. Sit down if you can. If those are chairs. Yeah, they are, in a sense. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be back in the great state of Michigan. And as you know, we had big victory in Michigan. And I won't forget it, and I'm not forgetting it. And I'm honored to be here at Selfridge Air National Guard Base with the men and women of the 127th Wing of the Michigan Air National Guard. Thank you very much for being here. This is great. It's a great honor, and a great honor for me. We've had such success in Michigan. I want to thank the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who's doing a really great job. The Houthis will tell you that. He's doing a very good job. Major General Paul Rogers and Brigadier General Daniel Kramer of the Michigan National Guard. Commander of the 127th Wing, Brigadier General Matthew Brancato, thank you very much. Deputy Commander Colonel David Spihar, wherever you may be, David. Where's David? Huh? Hello? Hello, David. Where the hell are you, David? Oh, hello, David. Thank you very much. He's like the quiet type, right? But a killer, I hear. Command Chief Master Sergeant Bruce Hedrick. Bruce? Hello, Bruce. Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. Great job. For decades, they've been trying to save this facility. I didn't realize that. I thought it was just recently, because I heard about it recently from some people, including your governor, who has done a very good job. She came to see me. That's the reason she came to see me, by the way, to save Selfridge. And she was very effective, along with some of the other politicians and some of the military people. They love this place. They love what it stands for, all the victories they've had here over the years. So I want to thank Governor Gretchen Whitmer for bringing it also to our attention very strongly. And you know, I'm not supposed to do that. She's a Democrat. They say, don't do that. Don't have her here. I said, no, she's going to be here. She's done a very good job, frankly, and she was very much involved with the Republicans. They worked together on saving it, and it was not easy. So I want to thank you very much, Gretchen. Good job. Thank you. Michigan House Speaker Matt Hall worked with Gretchen and everybody else. Thank you, Matt. Great job you're doing, too. John James, as you know, is right now working on the great, big, beautiful deal. I said, do me a favor, John, just stay back there and let's get your vote. Let's not worry about this today. But John was fantastic, as were all of the other representatives that you have that are right now in Congress working very, very, very hard, actually. And Michigan Senate Republican leader Eric Nesbitt, thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much. Great job. Done a great job. But I want to thank all of the people that I just mentioned, but in particular, you know, when I look at the House members, they have been calling me all the time, okay, we got to get it done. And they worked along with Gretchen and some others. And you're going to be very happy with what I have to say right now. I also want to thank Michigan's tremendous Republican delegation, the whole delegation, the whole state, because they're back in Washington and they're helping our congressman. And they're helping us get the votes that we need, because I think if we get it, we have the biggest tax cut in history, and if we don't get it, you have the biggest tax increase. And for that, I will blame the Democrats, because we probably won't get any votes from Democrats. Not for any reason other than we're Republicans, and the Democrats tend not to vote anytime we vote. The whole thing is so crazy. But it'll be the biggest tax increase in history if we don't get it. And that's why the Republicans can do it, but they have to stick together, and I think they are, from what I understand, really sticking together. I want to thank also Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and John Thune, Leader John Thune. They have been working together and with the senators and the Congress, men and women, and I think they've got something that's really, it's big league, and it's very important. The biggest bill ever, if we get it done, and I think we will. For decades, Selfridge Air National Guard Base has stood as a crucial pillar of North American air defense, just 20 miles north of Detroit, where you're going to have a lot of car factories opening very soon, by the way, I might add, with access to the largest military airspace complex east of the Mississippi. Selfridge is tightly integrated with the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. This airfield saw its first military takeoff all the way back in 1917. Can you believe that? Wow, wouldn't that have been a shame to close this great history for something else that wouldn't be as good? The Tuskegee Airmen trained here during World War II, and generations of Michigan patriots have served here with great distinction. Unfortunately, that proud legacy was put at risk by the retirement of the key aircraft based here, in particular the A-10 Thunderbolt II Warthog, which I hear is an incredible plane. It's too bad. It's a long time it's been up there. I said, why don't we save it? I actually said that last time, and we did save it. I said that in my last term, and we did save it, but now it's coming to an end. But I hear the Warthog is incredible. And we have support aircraft and also the KC-135 Stratotankers. In recent years, many in Michigan have feared for the future of the base. They've been calling everybody, but the only one that mattered was Trump. They called Trump, and we got it done, which represents $850 million in economic impact across the state of Michigan, and probably it could be much more than that as we expand it out, and creates thousands and thousands of good and important jobs, both in the military and civilian jobs. So Gretchen, that's a big economic, you're not going to have too many economic development jobs like that. It's great. But today I've come in person to lay to rest any doubts about Selfridge's future and the vital role it'll play in our national defense. As Commander-in-Chief, I'm proud to announce that very soon we will replace the retiring A-10 Warthogs with 21 brand new F-15EX Eagle II fighter jets, the best in the world, fresh off the line. Brand new. And they have an expression, you know what that means, fresh off the line. That means they are brand new. They've never been anywhere. This is where they're going to be for a long time. And I saw one of them flew over my head, and I said, what the hell is that? That plane has serious power. So this is the best there is anywhere in the world, the F-15EX Eagle II. This will keep Selfridge at the cutting edge of Northern American air power. My administration will also continue with plans to replace the outgoing KC-135s and KC-46 Pegasus aircraft to continue that important refueling mission. And they'll be restocked with brand new top-of-the-line refuelers. For generations, the men and women of Selfridge have always been here, and they've always been for us. Whether you're Republican or you're Democrat, they've always been for us. They've been for America. And under the Trump administration, we're going to be there for you. The previous administration was willing to surrender Air National Guard fighter units across the country by retiring aircraft that were not being replaced. We are replacing. But under the Trump administration, we're correcting that injustice, and that starts right here in Michigan, where we have a big commitment to Michigan and to the state, even beyond this. This is an exciting time for the United States military. Since November, enlistment numbers for every branch of the armed forces have surged. Recruitment is now the highest it's been in 39 years. Now, if you remember that, you better hold on to those jobs or somebody will take them. Somebody will take those jobs so fast. Hold on to those jobs. Don't leave that job. Who would have thought because prior to November 5th, which is Election Day, I was hearing that recruitment was so bad, it was so impossible, it was hard to get people. And this goes not only for the armed forces, for the police, for firemen. People are proud of our country again, big difference. But we had the worst numbers that we've ever had virtually. We couldn't get anybody, and now we're overstocked. We have waiting lists of people wanting to sign up and be with the military. They're proud of our country again. And I'll be supporting a record-setting $1 trillion investment in our national defense. We're going to go $1 trillion, the largest in the world, largest ever in our country, but no other country's invested that much. We have a $1 trillion budget for military this year, and we have tremendous plans, including increasing the scope of Selfridge. And I recently signed an order to begin construction of the Golden Dome missile defense shield to protect our homeland from missile attack. We're going to call it the Golden Dome. We had the Iron Dome, but somehow, Gretchen, Golden Dome sounds better to me. I don't know. Maybe it's not. What do you like better, Golden Dome or Iron Dome? What do you like better? Golden. Let's have a vote. Golden Dome. Oh, no, I think we're in trouble. Oh. How about the Iron Dome? Good. Keep it. That's good. Because we made all the changes already. It'll be a little bit. Even the renderings look very golden, look beautiful. No, it's going to be incredible. The latest and the greatest. A lot of it's going to be made in Michigan. A lot of it is going to be made the Golden Dome. You know, other countries have it. In particular, Israel has it, and we have a much more advanced, and theirs is very good. We helped do it. We did it. But we have an advanced version now that really is incredible what it does. We had a case study of 169 out of 169. Every one of them just shut down. And I think we're entitled to it, don't you? I think we're entitled to it as a country. America's military will soon be stronger and more powerful than ever before, and Selfridge Air National Guard Base will remain at the center of the action. And I just want to say we're building some of the greatest submarines and various other ships, but submarines in particular, we have a monopoly on great submarines. We're building the greatest in the world, most powerful machine ever built. And we're doing some things that are just incredible. In one way, you hate to do it, but in another way, you really have no choice. And we're fighting very hard on the China front and the Russia front with Ukraine and what's happening in the Middle East, and a lot of good things. You're going to be hearing a lot of good things. It's a shame. When I left office not so long ago, we had no wars. We defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. It was supposed to take 5 years, they told me. Sir, it's going to take about 5 years. We did it in 3 weeks. Raising Cain, he's now your top, he's your top person. He's the head of the Joint Chiefs. And I did that because he was the one. He said, sir, we can do it in 3 weeks. I said, 3 weeks? They told me 5 years. No, sir. You can do it in 3 weeks, sir. And I said, let's see if you can do it. And he did it. He had a little time left over, actually. And ISIS was gone, totally defeated. And he's the man we wanted. That's the man I said, if I do this again, I'm going to put that guy in charge, because he did things that nobody else was able to do. And nobody else even thought it or even suggested. So I'm very proud to have him head up the whole military operation along with Pete and some other great people. So I just want to say that Michigan, it's been my great honor to be here. I've had tremendous success in Michigan. Not all Republicans have, but I have. And not just this time either. We had we did tremendously well in 2020, and we did incredibly well in 2016. In 2016, they said it couldn't be won. It couldn't be won, but we won, and we won by a lot. So it's a special place, and I don't forget my friends, and Michigan's been my friend. And I want to just thank everybody here. I want to congratulate you, actually, because there are a lot of people wanted this to happen to their neck of the woods, but it's happening for you. So congratulations, and God bless you all. God bless our military, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations.
only because the Commander-in-Chief invited me. Mr. President, thank you for restoring the warrior ethos inside our formations, for rebuilding our military, reestablishing deterrence around the world, and making Americans proud to wear the uniform. That recruiting surge we're seeing right now is because they know they have a Commander-in-Chief that has their back. That's my message to these men and women every single place we go. All I ever wanted when I was in combat was to know that my commander had my back, no matter what. And with Donald J. Trump, that commander has your back. And that means something to the men and women of America, and that's why we're seeing a record surge in recruiting. That's why we're locking down our southern border. That's why our enemies know we mean business, because we have a Commander-in-Chief that has our back, and he has the back of this base as well. God bless you all. Thank you.
Well, I hadn't planned to speak, but I'm on behalf of all the military men and women who serve our country and serve so honorably on behalf of the state of Michigan. I am really damn happy we're here to celebrate this recapitalization at Selfridge. It's crucial for the Michigan economy. It's crucial for the men and women here, for our homeland security and our future. So thank you. I'm so grateful that this announcement was made today, and I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It's because of your leadership this is happening. No one else could save Selfridge. We've tried for decades. It took you, Mr. President. This is why the people of Michigan elected you, sir. You have not forgetting us. This is the first time in decades where we can all say Selfridge is winning. We are winning because of you, President Trump, and I know all of these troops here will not let you down with this new fighter mission, which will keep Selfridge Air National Guard base thriving for the next 30 to 40 years. Thank you, Mr. President, for remembering us and keeping your commitment when we saw you in Washington a few weeks ago. Thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for coming to Macomb County. Thank you for coming to Michigan. And thank you for providing another important service of the F-15X. This means that these folks are going to be continuing on the mission for America for the coming decades. Because of your leadership, America's back again, Macomb's back again, Michigan's back again, and Selfridge will be leading the way. Thank you, Mr. President, for showing that leadership.
So let's talk about what is coming our way, okay? And entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, to a different degree, are all in the mix. Yesterday, House Minority Leader Jeffries and Senator Booker held a sit-in on the Capitol steps saying they're going to cut Medicare and Medicaid. Let's ask the man who was just sworn in as the new administrator for the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz. Congratulations, Doc. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Chris.
So the first question is, have you been told that Medicaid and Medicare services are going to be cut in this upcoming budget if the administration has its way?
No, the president has said to me repeatedly and publicly that he wants to love and cherish these vital programs. You know, when you walk in the office building that I work in at Humphreys, which is named after Hubert Humphrey, you see a quote from him. And I think it's worth remembering that quote because it applies to our great society. We must take care of our most vulnerable. That's how we're judged, by the way. And what Hubert Humphrey said was, it is the moral obligation of government to take care of those at the dawn of life, children, those in the twilight of their life, our seniors, and those in the shadows. Those are the most vulnerable. Those are the folks for whom Medicaid was originally designed. And what we have to do, and this is not about politics, this is about patriotism, but we must make these programs strong to do just that. And so if you look from my perspective out there, you see massive amounts of fraud, waste, and abuse. We have to enforce the rules to stop that. I can regale you with numbers, and maybe we will later in this interview, but we also have to empower the average American so they actually can control their destiny, and we have to provide incentives for the providers, the doctors, the hospitals to be more efficient with how they shepherd our dollars. And I want to caution everybody, when we get into this debate, it sort of goes around and around, but at its very core, 70% of what we spend on healthcare is driven by chronic illness. That's why the MAHA movement is so important. If we make America healthy again, then we'll be able to use those funds that we're saving by not spending it on chronic illness management when it's already a little bit late sometimes for preventive services that help all of us.
Well, if you can get preventive services covered, that'd be great. Right? A lot of people don't get it within their network. Their doctors, want to treat them, but they know they're not going to get paid. So that would actually expand. And then that's kind of your problem, is everybody's talking about cutting, maybe for tax cuts, because you got to cut spending at some point. You weren't part of the last administration, but he cut taxes, didn't cut spending, and ballooned the deficit. So conservatives don't want to let him do that again. You're going to have to deal with that. And you need an expansion, if anything, Doc, because you have all these red states that didn't expand when they had the chance, so they have disproportionate numbers of people in their states who aren't covered. What do you do about that?
We've got wonderful tools that weren't available even a few years ago that we could apply to make sure that we can ensure that everyone has access to what they need in order to live the best lives possible. But I want to take a step back from this polemic that we're getting into. At its very core, our responsibility to each other is to make sure that we're supportive of the most vulnerable. So to do that correctly, you have to be thoughtful and curious about what you want to do. Too often people leap at an idea thinking that's going to resonate for them. They can bark that out to their colleagues or on the Capitol steps or on pundits on media. But my job, my responsibility, and I'm blessed with a very strong group at CMS, brilliant folks working hard. They feel unleashed now. What this president has done in the first 100 days, it give us very clear directives. These executive orders are crisp, and they're designed to make sure that we know what he wants. And our job is to make sure that those tasks, which, again, the American people voted for President Trump, so they want what he wants done, our job is to make sure we act on those opportunities. And many of them are designed to help CMS, my agency, and under Bobby Kennedy, we're doing this very effectively, get out there and make sure that Americans are getting healthier. I'll give you one good example. I think we ought to have better interagency cooperation. If there's great wisdom at the NIH to research the causes of chronic illnesses, or frankly any illness, and the FDA is out there and has the ability to answer those questions with really thoughtful opportunities to help Americans stay healthier, the best technologies, for example, the best concepts, and then the CMS, what I am responsible for, can pay for these because we've been very careful in how we've shepherded the funds that are available. And remember, the funds we're spending come from the taxpayer. So our job is to abide the fiscal responsibility to make sure that we're thoughtful about how we invest those so we get the most return for that. We're already spending, Chris, twice as much per capita as any other country in the developed world. Twice as much. And yet our survival rate since you and I were in college has dropped to about 5 years behind Europe. We are witnessing the number 3 cause of death being healthcare mistakes. So there's lots we can do better. Instead of looking at the edges of this and trying to pick on each other, we need to focus on the patriotic responsibility that each of us have to be as healthy as possible. And I think that wisdom is being out there ensured by President Trump's actions and by Secretary Kennedy's wisdom to flow down to all of us in the agencies. And that's what we're laser focused on.
What are you going to do if, and you can say it's a hypothetical, but it's not that far-fetched, Doc. If it turns out that, hey, look, we changed our mind. We have to make cuts to the biggest buckets because we need a tax cut to get out of this economic stress that we're in right now. Would you fight against that, even if it's the directive of the administration? What about your duty to the little man in that case?
President Trump's not going to do that. I'll tell you what he is going to do, because he told me to do this, is go out there and crush the waste and fraud and the abuse that exists in the system. Chris, I'm going to give you some numbers that are going to blow your mind, and I think the audience will be sort of pushed back a little bit by this. But I also want to emphasize that the main way we make these systems work for all Americans is to make sure that the federal government and the states are aligned. Right now, we have these paradoxical incentives where if you're a state, you may actually want to do stuff that's not in the best interest of the federal government or vice versa. So here's some numbers. Are you ready? $1 billion
Yes,
we
sir.
spend on people who are on Medicaid in multiple states at the same time.
Multiple states.
Nobody wants that, but the individual states, they benefit from having the extra person on their rolls who's not getting care. We spent $200 million in the last term on CMS last year on housekeeping services, $10 million on public unions, child care services, another $10 million, by the way, on student loans. These aren't related to taking care of our most vulnerable. When Hubert Humphrey, a Democrat, said that we have a moral obligation to take care of those in the dawn, the twilight, and the shadows of life, he wasn't talking about student loans or DEI programs. Let's use the money that the American people have given us for the purpose that they're trusting us and trusting us to use it for. That's what the president has told me over and over again. Trust and cherish Medicare and Medicaid. Don't let unscrupulous people steal money from our most vulnerable. And I promise you we're going to be aggressive in enforcing those rules.
But you have, like, you know, you have a split, right? It's overwhelmingly federal, but you have federal and state. You get somewhere upwards of over $850 billion. Waste, fraud, and abuse is going to be pennies. Look, you know, obviously you should find it, you should identify it, you should get rid of it. That's always been popular, okay? I've never heard of any administration not looking for waste, fraud, and abuse, and I've never heard of anybody not finding it. But it's pennies on the dollar in terms of what you're spending. And what if they want real cuts? You know, because those numbers, you could cut everything there. You're still, you know, nowhere in terms of the overall budget.
You know, Chris, before I took this position, I thought what you thought. It's not right. We probably have $100 billion of fraud, waste, and abuse. And it's, again, it's not just foreign elements, and there are out there, trying to defraud us by stealing money for our most vulnerable. And I say that again. There are other countries that are actively involved in this process, or at least citizens of other countries involved in the process. But what I'm also realizing is that when you misalign what states want from what the national the groups like CMS want, you end up with people gaming the system. They'll actually charge more for Medicaid patients than people who are on commercial insurance. These are massive numbers, Chris. When states can play games with their budget and then the federal government reimburses them for those games, you have inequality. Some states, California and New York, are really good at it. Other states aren't so good at it. So you've got taxpayers, for example, in Mississippi and Alabama and Texas paying for illegal immigrants getting Medicaid support in California. That's not fair. Most Americans watching this program right now are going to look up and say, what are you talking about? How's that possible? Well, if one state allows certain things to be under their Medicaid program, because Medicaid's run by states, and then passes a bill to the federal government, guess whose taxpayers are paying that bill? Every other state's.
Everybody's, yeah. How overwhelming has this been for you, Mehmet? You know, you're a brilliant doctor in your own right, but you're not a bureaucrat. You've never been a policy guy. What's the learning curve like for you?
Oh, it's steep. The learning curve, it's like drinking from a fire hose. But I actually think this is the best job I've ever had. Surrounded by brilliant people, hardworking individuals. Folks like Stephanie Carlson, who was the acting administrator until I was confirmed by the Senate, did a spectacular job pulling the agency together. I'm over, again, each day surprised by the great ideas that come from within the middle of the organization. Remember, we've got 6,000, little more folks that are within the government at CMS, but we have 40,000 contractors on the outside. There's lots of talent there. My main job is to make sure smart people don't kill each other, and also to make sure that the best ideas percolate from within the organization and come and rise to the top. And we have a generational opportunity, Chris, because there are people coming from the outside, giving up all their private sector wealth and ambition and opportunity because as patriots, they want to serve within the government. And some of these folks, like Chris Klum, for example, just joined us this week. He gave up a fantastic opportunity that he was on the outside profiting from. He gave it up because he really understands the challenges. He came in. I think that's wonderful. And that's two of many examples that are out there. Folks like John Brooks and Kim Branch, just superstars who are doing everything possible to make sure that the organizations like CMS are serving their people. But I got to hand it to two people in particular. Bobby Kennedy has done a spectacular job pulling together all the different agencies. It's like a band of brothers. You've got Jay Bhattacharya, Wani McCary at the FDA, Jay's at NIH, collaborating. And we have the president at the top, who is the best leader I've ever worked with. And again, I'm speaking from someone who's on the inside. When he is focused on the topic that you're engaged in, he knows exactly, instinctively, what opportunities may lie there. And he trusts us to enforce what he thinks needs to be done. And that's why you have so many loyal people within the administration.
I'll take your word for it, and we'll see what the results are. Mehmet, I look forward to seeing what you do, Doc, during the budget process when they start having to come out and disclose where they want budget cuts to come from if they want tax breaks. And you'll always have a platform here to make the case to the American people for what is wanted and what you think is right and not right for the people you're serving.
God bless you, Chris.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.